Michael, would you like to start out?
With what?
Introductions.
Just.
Who are you? Who are you?
Yeah, who am I? I'm Michael Surbrook. I have been doing professional game development since about 2000 or so, and I've worked with a number of companies, either directly, like Fantasy Flight and Pinnacle and Hero Games and such, or I've taken advantage of open licenses to create content for D&D and Prowlers and Paragons and Savage Worlds. And if you can look me up, Surbrook, on DriveThruRPG and see what I've done.
Thank you.
And Bill Keys can go next.
I'm Bill Keys, also known as the Evil Bunny. I have been in the game industry since about 2008, so 16 years, give or take. I've done a lot of work for Hero Games. I've done work for Wrath and Glory, the Warhammer 40K role-playing game. I've done work for Third Eye Games. I've done work with Pinnacle, Star Anvil, a whole bunch of different people. I also have my own small press called Harmless Forest Creature Games, which you can also look up on DriveThruRPG.
Awesome. I'm Darrell Hayhurst. I work at Pinnacle, the Savage Worlds people. My official title is creative director, but really I just write and I herd cats. You know, like that's what I do. My credentials for being here on a panel about GMing is my ex-wife, after divorcing me, still said I was a good GM. And so at that point I believed it.
It's facts.
Right.
Hi, my name is Karl Keesler. I've been in the RPG business for about 20 years now. Actually, my company's Doghouse Rules. And actually this year is our 20th anniversary. We're currently running a Kickstarter for Sidewinder Recoiled. It's a Western Savage Worlds game. I do a lot of graphic design work. I'm the art director there. I work for Pinnacle a lot. I do a lot of freelancing for them, a lot of their trade dress and their looks and stuff like that. And I run lots and lots of convention games, from GenghisCon to here, to Mythicon, to Gamehole Con, you name it. So,
like, our constant joke is like, you're no Karl Keesler, you know, when someone has something, which I'll even also say to Karl. But I always have to like preface that, because sometimes I'll do that. I'll be like, you're no Karl Keesler, and people are like, what? Right. You're not in on this joke.
Yes.
You guys are now. Okay?
I do a lot of terrain and maps and minis.
They're
and custom
amazing.
stuff
The
like
man
that.
is a machine, honestly.
Appreciate it, man.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. And yeah, if you could get into either one of these games, they're absolutely fantastic. In you guys' experience, how can a GM manage play styles to help keep everybody engaged?
Oh, who wants to start?
I'm thinking.
Wait, so I'll go. Like,
Okay.
I'm not a play style GM. Like, there's a couple that I care about personally. Like, one, I've found most players are going to fall into one of two things. They're either treating their character like a toy, and they want to play with it and break it and have lots of fun with it, or they're treating their character like an extension of themselves. And for the first type, oh man, you want to turn the screw and hose them and have a good time like that. If you figure out they're the second type, you want to pull back on that. Like, it's okay to not put as much pressure or challenge on them. It's like, that's one of the few that, like, I tend to like, all right, I'm going to notice this and I'm going to care. And then the other one is there are kind of players who want to participate in the creation and players who want to be immersed in the creation. And so there's like a common GM technique of like, oh, well, what do you think is there? And you know, you kind of riff off that. And some players thrive on that, but others, it completely shuts them down because you're in a different mode. Like, I have to switch off playing and experiencing mode and switch on creative, writing mode. And some people don't shift that gear very well. And so that's why I often lean away from that, just so I don't have to be aware of that gear shift in my players.
So you prefer to immerse them and let them...
That's my style. Like, they're all valid styles, and part of it as you go on is figuring out what makes you happy as a GM and doing that, right?
Yeah, never forget that you're a player too. So you want to be engaged and enjoy the game as well. It should never be work for you.
I will say that I don't know if I'm astute enough to pick up on play styles, but I know in some of the stuff I've been running online, I will feed them, I immerse them, but then it'll eventually come a point where I'll say, well, you've played long enough. How about you tell me? And they usually jump on that. They've been playing 30, 40 sessions, and I'll say, well, you tell me. I'll say, you're coming to a town, new place, but why don't you guys, I'll go around the table, everybody can tell me something that you see. But now by this point, they often are like, okay, we are comfortable with you, we're comfortable with each other, comfortable with the setting, we're willing to extend ourselves and come up with ideas. So that works, you give them time.
I'm a little like Darrell. Yeah, you kind of immerse your players in the world, the setting, the scenario, whatever you're doing. But you also have to, as a GM, you have to kind of pick up a skill of being emphatic. Like you have to kind of feel people out and kind of guess and watch them how they play and kind of pick up on that. If someone's being quiet and they really don't want to be out there, you might want to ask them, specifically point at them and ask them a question like an NPC, ask them something. And if they really don't want to engage, don't push it. It might not be their comfort zone.
And they're still having fun.
They are.
A lot of those
Exactly.
players, that's how they enjoy playing.
Exactly. I play with some people back home, and they're not that role-playing like. They're not getting in character. They're not talking in voices, but that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
As long as they're having a good time and you're having a good time, because like you said over there, you are a player too. You have to remember that. But you just got to kind of watch people. I do a lot of people watching and stuff like that and try to pick up on cues on what they're laying down. You got to kind of pick that stuff up.
There's also, kind of riffing on what Darrell was saying, there's two other types of players. There's the player who's more cerebral, who wants thinking challenges. They want to, they don't necessarily want to roll the dice. They want to kind of outsmart the GM. They feel really good when they come up with, they're like, aha, it's actually this guy. He's the villain. Yeah. I like to reward that kind of style of play by saying, even if that guy wasn't the villain, be like, you know what? Logically speaking, you put pieces together, you put clues together. Yeah, sure, he's the villain, and that's totally legit. You also have action players who, they just want to kick down the door and piss on the floor, I like to say. And so to keep both types engaged, you kind of have to go back and forth between, this is going to be an action scenario. There's going to be a lot of fighting. There's going to be a lot of challenges, physical challenges that you're going to roll dice for. And there's also going to be, after that, there's going to be a puzzle to solve, a mystery to solve, NPCs to charm or to threaten to get what you want. So keep both of them engaged that way.
As an addition to what Bill said, Ken Hite talks about the first part, which is you present a mystery and you know that Colonel Mustard is the villain, but the players assemble a bunch of clues which pretty foolproof say that Captain Blue is actually the villain. So he goes with what Bill says, which is, yeah, you've caught the villain, but he also points out Colonel Mustard's now rubbing his hands going, I got away with it. Mm-hmm. And you can circle him back around. So you can reward your players with creative thought processes, but then also remember, that doesn't mean this guy's now innocent.
Good point. Good point.
And being part of being able to play in at least 3 out of the 4 people up here in their games, I can say that every single one of you guys do an excellent job at reading the table, reading the players, and really immersing them or playing to them as an individual.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The next question is, how do you guys handle conflict between players that are playing your games or the dissatisfaction of your players in the direction that the game is going?
I have kind of an answer to this. It can be very tricky. If you've got players, not characters who are butting heads is great because that's drama, right? But if players are butting heads, that's not really what you want. And I have an old supervisor, an old manager of mine once told me that you criticize in private, you praise in public. So if somebody is not fitting in with your table, or if there's something going on where they're just causing conflict, real life conflict with the other players, take them aside, maybe invite them over to the game, half an hour early, or ask them to stay half an hour late, and sit them down, not with everybody around, just with you and them, and talk about what's going on. You're butting heads with her. She's starting to get really frustrated in real life. Maybe you're just playing. She's getting frustrated in real life. We need to work on this situation. So it's really good to have an open line of communications with your players. Talk to them about what's going on. Maybe something's going on with his life. His job is crap. His girlfriend is leaving him. Something's going on that's making him take it out on the game. Talk to him about it.
Yeah, most of the techniques I see talked about, for this topic are usually all to avoid having the difficult conversation. And the only solution is to have the difficult conversation, like outside of the game, outside of the table, and realize it's okay to have very different play styles and goals, and you can still be friends and not want to game with a person, and vice versa, and what a lot of us often live is like, well, we only know like 4 people that want to play, so we're going to have to put up with this person. But it's like, really, you need to go cultivate and find a different 4th person, and be okay with like, yeah, we'll still go out and watch a movie or whatever. I just don't like playing with you, man.
So, as an addendum to that, right now I don't run any face-to-face games. I run everything on Discord because I'm playing with people literally all over the U.S. So a couple of years ago, I started a campaign, and I had a guy decide, I'm just going to shoot people. I'm not getting the questions I want. My character's going to shoot people. I wasn't crazy about his character origin. And basically the other 4 players or 5 players sort of were here, and he was here. And I didn't actually set him aside and talk to him. I kind of talked to these guys, and because I had this faction, and my decision was I'm not going to tell them to adapt to you. Either you need to adapt to that play, you need to tone yourself down, or you have to decide if you want to keep playing. And he left, and the game was better for it. Now, I'm not going to hang out with him because I don't know where he lives. I think I've bumped into him on a Discord server and such like that. But this ties into something that deals with player and GM agency, which is every player has the right to quit a game that they don't like, even if they've talked to the GM. And every GM has the right to actually just quit a campaign that's not working for them. The idea that bad gaming is better than no gaming is no, it's not any fun. So that's always something to consider, which is if you're not getting along with your players, if they're all trying to do X and you're trying to play Y, you may need to say, look, I'm not the GM for you. This is not any fun for me. I'm not really enjoying running this because I'm a player too. So maybe we should just cut this and somebody else GM if you meet face to face, or you guys all figure something out. So I think that's it for your mental self-worth and sanity. You may either want to quit a game that you realize is stressing you out and easier player or GM.
Yeah, these guys bring up great points that I'm just going to touch on because I've been there and done that. I've had to actually take 2 guys out of the game. Like, hey, let's
He
go.
took them out.
not like that. I'm not taking it out. Like, we're going to go to eat dinner. I had to actually take 2 guys out of one of my home games, and I'm like, dudes, you guys are having problems. It's obvious. Let's go have dinner. I'm buying. So as a GM, and we talk things out. I wanted to know what the person, because obviously it was a personal problem. I'm not going to get into it, but there was a problem there. You got to have those conversations. As a GM, it's just part of the job that I think, you have to wear many hats, and that's one of them. As a moderator, you just got to. You have to have those conversations. If things happen in the middle of the game and things are getting heated, which I've had happen, and people start yelling, I'm like, all right, we're stopping here. Let's talk about this before it goes beyond anything that we can't repair, because we're all friends here. You have to remember that. We're all friends.
So actually, I was running Curse of Strahd, and I had a guy in my game who was my nephew's friend, and they had never played really D&D or horror. And he was playing a bard, and he was being flamboyant, not flamboyant, he was being expressive. That's the best way to put it. And he tracted aggro like mad because his character wouldn't keep his mouth shut. And I know he wasn't, at one point he was looking not happy, and I didn't do it. But I love the fact that a player goes, Luke, yeah, Mike doesn't hate you. Your character. Strahd hates your character. He doesn't hate you, but the land hates you. So you are getting enormous amounts of face time because of your character. It's not you. He's not out to get you. And I think there was a bit of an epiphany where he's like, oh, I'm actually like center of attention. My character is center of attention. He's throwing all this grief on me, but it's also giving me a chance to actually be, well, I get FaceTime. And it helped him, because I mean, he may not have fully understood the idea of, you're in a horror game.
And you guys, to kind of caveat off of that, how do you guys prepare or deal with those players that kind of want to steamroll you?
The overbearing character, sometimes the overbearing player. Yeah. Sometimes having a player at the table who is very, very active. That one player who always chases every single plot seed you throw out, who I have one of those. I actually have two of those in my game, my home game. And any kind of hint or anything that I throw out, they will chase it like a dog chases a ball. And then they will chew on it like a dog chews on a ball. And it's great because they keep the action moving all the time. It can be a little frustrating because they're always kind of looking over the horizon. They're looking for the next cool thing to do. They don't always focus on the current task at hand. But I like having at least one of those players at my table because if things start to slow down, if things start to get boring, if people aren't sure what direction to go in, anything like that, boy, they will come up with a plan, even if it's the dumbest thing you've ever heard. They will chase it down.
Well, I have a different take on that. I have, in my current game that I'm running online, I have someone who has said, smack me down effectively if I'm overbearing. And so because I run virtually, we've got Discord, I've got everybody's camera, I will pause the action and say, okay, I'm going to go clockwise around my screen. And I will say, Bill, this is the situation. Give me a scene or an action. Darrell, and Karl. And you don't get to interrupt me, or you don't get to interrupt him. It's his FaceTime, and I'll take notes and I'll come back around. And I've had him, I'll say, I'm not going to use his real name. I'll say, George, it's not your turn yet. Let me go around the table. Let me get to you. And you sometimes have to say, you're not there. Respect Bill's turn to do something, especially if he's a wallflower. It's his turn to at least tell me something and get his action. I've often said the one thing that Matt Mercer does that I don't like as a GM is he'll let two people or one person go on and on and on and on. And I'm like, you've got 7 other players. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Give them a little more time. I realize, of course, because it's kind of character driven and it's like live action theater, a lot of fans eat that up. But as a GM, I'm like, no, you need to give everybody a little more time and I've actually run first time games where I'm asking this lady, well, what do you do? What do you do? And she realized, wait, he's asking me, he's not telling me. And she kind of opened up as a player and thought, this is a lot more fun than I thought, because I specifically asked each person and didn't let the guy who knew the game inside and out tell everybody or dominate. And I don't want to put them in their place, but they have to respect. There's 6 other players or 5 other players. Everybody occasionally needs to get their screen time, not just you.
Within the game, be careful what you reward, because players do what you reward them for. And they will pick up on that. Like, oh, this person did this and got a benefit. I want to do that. Be very careful, what you are rewarding, or you might be encouraging exactly the behaviors that you don't want to see. And then outside of the table, have the difficult conversation, because sometimes people just don't know. Yeah. They don't realize. Right. It's like, hey, or sometimes you can co-opt that and be like, someone else is having trouble expressing themselves. I'd like you to help them.
Yeah, mentor them.
And that diverts their attention from drawing all that in to trying to push it to someone else.
So that's exactly what I do at my home games, and especially con games. I stand the whole time of my games. I know a lot of people probably can't do that, but I stand and I have their attention, and I point at people, and I have a mental clock in my head that I need to hit everybody and give everybody a turn, even though there might be one person that is overbearing, and I'm like, sometimes you might have to cut them off and say, that's cool, okay, but let's let John over here have a chance. What are you doing? And as I find, if the movement of just pointing at somebody, that kind of like, oh, he's pointing at me, and everybody else sees that, picks that up, and that kind of brings the action to that person rather than having the overbearing player like just go off and you're just sitting back and not really reacting to that. So
Excellent point.
yeah, yeah, thank you.
Actually, a quick addendum this is just more general GM advice. I can't always stand as long as I'd like, and here I'm going to sit down. But I would go back to my Curse of Strahd game. Standing is empowering. So I might be sitting, talking and everything, and then all of a sudden I would stand up and start talking. And it was almost always was when Strahd was around, but it made me, like I'm looking down at my seated players, and I felt more confident to be whatever character I was being. And the other thing, of course, if I stood up, they began to learn, oh,
Something's happening.
something's happened. And then it might be, you must tell me what you have seen. No introduction, just started talking like that. And I'd watch players go, oh, he's talking to Strahd. and it was a great feedback. That was where I really tried to push being a better GM. And I learned a lot from it. And standing up is a great way to not establish dominance, but certainly feel more confident. And players will shut up and look at you like something's going to happen.
Karl, you brought up a good point on, GMing at home and GMing at a con. What kind of are some of the main differences do you do to kind of distinguish the two and play to those two different realities?
Okay, so GM at home, you have plenty of time. I mean, your time. I mean, you can let people role play. You can get something involved, like a whole session just might be role playing. But at a con, people are coming here, and you usually have 3 to 4 hours, and you want to get some cool stuff in there. You want to have either some fighting, some action, maybe a car chase, whatever it may be. So you kind of gotta have. I always GM with my phone next to me, and I'm constantly hitting it, watching the time. But you have to hit certain beats, and you have to understand that, they're at your table for 3 to 4 hours, but they're going to another game right after this. They don't want to sit around and linger, or you end the game with hey, I ran out of time, you guys win. I mean, that's kind of a letdown. So you kind of gotta watch the clock at a con game. You kind of have to have that mentality that you're like, we need to finish this in 3 to 4 hours. I need to hit certain beats. Play testing is very important for your con games. I do that all the time. I never run a con game without play testing at least once. You got to get those beats down, what I call different, maybe 3 acts, maybe 4 acts, but you kind of got to keep that in mind. At home, go for it. I mean, you're at home. You could, we're going to pick this up next session. You guys are having a great time. We're still role playing in the King's Castle. Why not? I mean,
I have run out of ideas. We're just going to stop.
Exactly.
We'll pick this up next week.
Exactly. Exactly.
Kind of riffing on what Karl's was saying was that and this does happen, if you're at a con game and things run long, it happens.
It does.
It happens to the best of us. And you're running out of time. It's been 3.5 hours out of 4 hours, and you want to let out. What I like to do is sort of give everybody at the table a chance. Again, just, your turn. Give everybody a chance to do something cool. What are you going to do to defeat the Vampire King? What are you going to do to defeat the Vampire King? How are you going to help defeat the Vampire King? Every single person gets a chance to do one thing cool. They can roll dice, or they can just narrate it, however you want to do it. But you don't just okay, I guess you guys lose. I guess you guys win. You got to give everybody a chance to finish that battle, to finish that, even if you're not actually role playing the whole thing.
That's where Savage Worlds is great for it. They have quick encounter.
Quick encounter is the best tool for that in the world.
Oh my gosh, it's so great, and I've used it so many times.
Me too.
Where you've actually run out of time, and you're like, okay, so what are we going to do? We're going to do a quick encounter, and you do exactly what you say. How are you defeating the bad guy? What is your action? Oh, you're going to make one roll, and we're going to narrate how that happens.
Yeah.
You're going to make one roll. You're going to narrate whatever it is.
Right.
At least it gives them a chance of becoming the hero at the end of that session, rather than just saying, "Oh, sorry guys."
So I'll give you this is from a GM point of view. I have found, especially just the session I just had, I've got these heroes and I've got all these foes, and I'm watching the game run and seeing what's going on, how much time we got left, and I'm like, you know what? See this point where this character appears? We're just going to scratch that. See this point where we're going to scratch that. Sure, I've got a nice adventure. I've got my 3 acts. I've got my opening and ending. But in between, things can be very flexible. And of course, I play Prowlers and Paragons often, which uses a health system. And at times I may be like, oh, you got 1 health left. You know what? In the interest of time, and I'll admit, interest of time, you took them out. Tell me how you did it. So, or make people run away, like, oh my God, they're terrified, they're out of here. So you can, as GM, you can simplify it for yourself. They don't know what's in your scenario. You may say, you know what, I don't have enough time for this, let's get to this. And I may often say, be honest with them, you know what, let's move the plot along. Let's get to this point. We don't need to, you've defeated these guys. We don't need to worry about mopping up a bunch of minions. You've done it. Maybe give me a quick scene. And then now we're going to move forward. And I found players respect that. They're not like, oh my God, I have to fight everybody on the board or I have to do everything. They understand it's a con game. And often they're like, well, what new nonsense is Mike going to throw at us? And let's get to that now.
You can, again, riffing on what both of you have said, in the middle of the game, if you feel like things are dragging, taking too long, you can cut things out of the game. With con games, it's really important to be able to say, we don't need this scene, this is not super important, it would be fun, but it's not, I can just cut that out and we can move on. If things are going too fast, on the other hand, you can add additional challenges into the character, into the game.
Right. At home, you've got that expectation that these are my friends, whatever. At a con, these aren't my friends. These are people that are here to play, and there's going to be an unknown quantity of different skill sets coming in. So I want to have those crutches at that game. Oh, and there's nobody that really knows how to do this part. Fine. Like, I can skip over that, or here's how I can move forward without that person at the table.
And you guys, to delve a little bit more into like some of the game mechanics and whatnot, how important is game mechanics in enhancing the storytelling? Like, say for example, if you have your player has some kick-ass idea on, how to do something, how do you guys bend the rules, or not necessarily break the rules, but bend the rules to help, let that player have a very enjoyable experience?
Yeah.
Wait, I can answer this one. I played Prowlers and Paragons a lot, and Bill taught me the greatest lesson. I have this awesome idea. Will it work? Give me a resolve.
Yeah.
Just pay the currency. We'll make it work. I mean, if it's a different game, I might think about it, but I don't want to hamper player creativity. I got this great idea. I mean, sometimes you have to say, I don't know if you really can do that, because you're going beyond the set of the game. But P&P is very player agency driven, so it's just give me a resolve.
There are a lot of games that have an in-game currency. Savage Worlds has its pennies. Prowlers and Paragons has a resolve. So you can certainly, yes, you can do that if you pay me for it. That's certainly an option. Yeah.
Yeah, like what he just said. So Savage Worlds, back to Savage Worlds, my go-to system. They have a Benny mechanic. If somebody brings something up, like it just happened in the game a few games ago. They wanted something, they're like, can we have this object here? I'm like, yeah, that's a great idea. You give me a Benny and it's there. That's what the Benny mechanic is for.
Yeah.
It's a give and take. I give you a bunch of tokens and stuff, and you want to do some cool stuff, give me back the tokens. You know, it's like really a good give and take like that.
Yeah.
And to flip that around, going back to that Curse of Strahd game, the new player was like, I don't know if I should do this. And I used an inspiration pool. Instead of everybody having one, there was a bowl. And I held one up and said, do the dumb thing. You get this. And all the players were like, do it. Do it. Do it.
Yeah. But yeah, these games work best. The games that have an in-game currency work best when the currency is going in both directions frequently.
Yeah. But for me, sometimes no is important. Because the whole reason for the rules is so that everyone's got an expectation of what reasonably could work or not work. And the farther you stray from that, the more some people disengage because they're like, well, I mean, I guess I'll just do this random thing and hope that it works out.
Right.
And once you lose that currency, that's when people buy out. And the other thing about game mechanics is you want them to benefit the things that you want to see in the genre, tropes, or whatever, and kind of push aside the things you don't want to see. And the more you're fighting with the game system to get that result that you're looking for, the more you're like, this is the wrong system for this. There's a lot of great systems that aren't always the right fit for the kind of game and story that you want to play.
If you have to house rule everything in your game,
Right.
you should probably find a different system.
Yeah, like there's an easier way to do this, right? And that no can be crucial for, okay, that is too far. This is what I need to do. And then the fiction is more real to people. So
I think it ties, okay, so I mean, everybody talks about yes and yes, no, and all that. But I think one of the most important things is that the GM should understand they can say no.
Yes.
Not necessarily in-game. It can be, I remember reading a satirical story about a guy whose gaming group, the dude always played a ninja. We're going to do Vikings, I'm a ninja. There's no, I don't know. And I have my motorcycle. And you need to be able to say, no, I don't care if you always play the same character. No, you don't get to do that in this game. And if I have to admit, if I had that guy and he left, I'd be like, okay, good, because I'm done with that. But saying no to a character concept, saying no to an action, or saying, am not comfortable with that, or saying, no, your character logically can't do that, no matter how many bennies or resolve or style points you give me.
you can try.
Yeah,
I mean, I'll let you roll those dice, but even if you get 100, I'm not going to let it happen.
There's those internet memes that go around like, I'm going to jump off the cliff and then flap my arms and fall down. Oh, I rolled a 20. I can do it. No, you
You
can't.
can try.
yeah. I mean, I actually get a little irritated with the nat 20 means I do whatever I said I did. And I'm like, look, to be fair, let's look at 5e rules. Nat 20 and 1s only matter in combat. Auto hit miss does not matter with skills. And this is where session 0 comes in. Tell your players, ignore those memes. This is how the dice are going to work.
And I'm sure you guys are all tired of hearing my questions for these guys, so we're going to open it up to you.
Oh, now it's okay. I'm out.
So does anybody have a question for any of these guys up here?
Give us the hard stuff.
Yeah. All right, come on up.
You can hear me.
The recording.
You're right. I have a tendency towards neomania. I'm a new GM and I like systems. How do you moderate? These are the guys that are going to pay for it, neomania. So how do you moderate that? How do you cut down on systems? Make sure you're not making your players try too many systems.
What is he?
He likes to play a whole lot of different systems. He likes to try new stuff. Correct me if I'm not repeating your statement. You like to create. You like to play new things. You like to try out new games and stuff.
Yes.
And sometimes your players don't necessarily want to follow you along down that trail.
Great sports. So I'm anticipating someday.
Okay.
That my neomania is gonna. Their tolerance of me is gonna wear thin.
Yeah.
I like doing. I like running two types of games for my home system, for my home game. I like running long campaigns that last like a year, even longer. I ran one that lasted almost 10 years, which was amazing. But I also like saying, hey, I've got a hankering to do Ghostbusters. I ran a Ghostbusters game using Savage World, Savage Ghostbusters.
It's great.
Nice.
And I said, I'm planning on this being a 4-session game. We're basically going to be doing a Ghostbusters movie. There's going to be 4 major beats. We're going to try to get through the whole thing in 4 sessions. And then, after the 4th session, we'll do something else. And so getting your players on board with that, if they're excited about it, they're like, yeah, we love Ghostbusters, and we would like to have a short campaign. That's great. Sometimes people want to do that year-long thing. So
Yeah, I used to struggle with this because a lot of my players really like, hey, they're invested in their characters and the story and they want it to keep going. But I'm just like, but there's the new shiny thing right over here. I want to try that new system. I want to try that new setting. And there's that push-pull, right? Like, well, this is what I want to do, but they want to continue on. And the way we found that worked really well for us was we do an on-off, where it's like, hey, we're going back to the campaign. And it's going to be like 4, 6 sessions, and then we're going to take a break, and I'm going to do my random one-off and get it out of my system, and then we'll go back 4 or 5, on the main one. And the reason that worked is like for a while we were trying to swap off and on, but then you lose the thread on both things that you're trying to do. But by like a block of like 4 or 5 sessions of the regular one, and then let's take a break. Everyone can, go do their other hobbies or whatever, or let's try this crazy new thing.
maybe somebody else could game master for a few weeks also.
Yeah,
Try something that they want.
We do, and we swamp like that. So we have 2 actually long-running campaigns going. You run 4, take a break. I run 4, take a break. Bam, bam, bam. We don't burn out.
Yeah, I do a lot like that. I'll warn them many sessions ahead. It's like, look, we're coming to an end. It's coming soon. Maybe 2, maybe 3 sessions. I don't know, but I want to do something else. Maybe it's a new system. Maybe it's a new genre within the same system. But I'll always communicate that to my players. And then I'll always ask them, because I have a group of players that really only want to play fantasy, and I might want to do something else, but I know that's their thing. So I'm not going to mess with them and say, look, we're going to play a spy game. And the interest level just drops. So you kind of got to talk to your players too, and maybe be on board with what they want and ask them hey, did you like this new system? And they're like, yeah, that was great. Let's continue with it.
Or find the other group that's into the random stuff.
Yeah.
Like, sure, this is my steady group.
Yep.
And then, all right, here's a couple people, and we're gonna play the crazy stuff.
I have currently 3 groups going, and they're all different. One just wants to do fantasy. One I can do anything I want to with. It's just.
So
let me just say real quick, congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you for trying new systems,
Yeah.
because there are a lot of people
Yeah.
who are like, this is the one system I know, this is the one system I want to do. I never want to play anything else. So thank you for trying new stuff.
Also, if you're making your players buy all their stuff and they're doing it, I'll take 2. Might I interest you in some Savage World settings?
So I am the odd person out. I currently don't have a local group here in Denver. So everything I do is on Discord. And what I've been basically doing is running sort of a massive play test. I've been running the same campaign just for different groups. I want to run it for him because I want to see what he would do with it. But once the game is over, we're done. I'm like, guys, this was great. We ran for 20, 30, 53 sessions. I'm not going to go any further with it. And it's a Discord game, so everybody goes back to their lives. So when my one Monday game ends, I'm probably not going to do Discord anymore. I'm going to try to find a local group. And when I was in Maryland, we had a regular group that met, and we did what you were describing, which is we would be like somebody go, well, we're done with it. We're done. It might be we might play pre-run modules. Okay, we've done this D&D game. What do you want to do? I want to do fantasy draft. We've done that. Well, I want to run this setting using champions. Okay, and then we were done with that. Hey, have you guys ever played Feng Shui? So GMs and players would switch. Nobody was an internal GM. Nobody was an internal player, except for some people who were just not into GMing. And we would kind of play around, but we would discuss, and people would come up, I want to do this. Was enough people wanted to play, we might do that. Or if everybody was like, no, I'm not in the giant robots, then okay, skip it. So, I mean, that's...
There you go.
What?
He said he's local and he's
We
got
have-
Thursdays free.
We have about 15 more minutes left in the seminar, so we'll take two more questions. Yeah.
When creating a dungeon, what can you add to kind of keep people's attention when they're not so much into action that's different than just a puzzle?
What can you do to help people's attention who don't want a lot of combat in their game, but it's different from just your standard Sphinx riddle sort of thing?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times in dungeons it ends up being, okay, we can either have combat and a monster here, or I can put in a puzzle. And when I have players who are maybe a little bit more roleplay oriented, they kind of just lose interest, and then you get that dead side of the table of like, eh.
Yeah. Did you hear that? Did you get that?
Yeah, I can answer partially of that.
Okay. Do you want to start?
Yeah. So, I've been running this campaign called Well of the Worlds. It's the same general plot. I've run it like 5 or 6 times. And I know all the beats because I've got my notes written down and everything. And I'm not going to throw a fight in unless they start the fight. There's not a lot of puzzles, but there may be moral questions. So one of the things, 2 things, one of which, as I've already mentioned, I'll go around and ask everybody what they're doing and give me a scene. And sometimes what I may do before the session ends is say, give me some objectives that you want. And so next session I can come back and say, you said you were going to go here. You said you were going to go here. You were going to talk to that person. So next session I come back and give them like a scene, maybe a role play scene, some answers or some interaction so that whatever their desire is gets built on and expanded on, or they get that face time or screen time to get the interaction they want. And so it balances the social with eventually, there is going to be action scenes because the guys who want to, the people who want to have a fight are going to have that. But I think asking the players is kind of important because you don't know what they want in their head. Maybe they're not telling you. Aaron Alston, who ran a superhero game for 260 sessions over 20 years, found out that one of his players, she was romantically interested in NPC but never said anything. So he kind of learned, and he would hand out every 6 months a sheet and said, give me, and this is a superhero game, so like, are you patrolling? Are you investigating this NPC of yours? Are you doing this? So he could build plots based on things that they weren't maybe broadcasting to him. You're not running a 20-year game with 260 sessions. You may just want to verbally every now and then, or at the end of a session say, okay, look, it looks, we've reached a break point. We may be going into new territory. How are you going to handle that? And then that way you can prepare your notes for next session and have your, bullet list of Joe, John, George, Ringo. What are you all doing? And what actions are you replying to as GM that they've given you at the end of last session?
So Mike is very long-winded about it, but to boil that down, if you have strong NPCs in your game that the players care about, that the characters and the players both care about, and it could be anybody from a family member, a friendly bartender, a villager that they rescued from a dragon, anything like that. If you put NPCs that they care about and you put them in jeopardy, the players will pay attention.
But yeah, and the other thing about people, right? Because your story, your region, it's got conflicts in it that you want your players to invest in, or it's got dilemmas with maybe no right answer. And the more those people that you manage to somehow, and sometimes it's hard. You're like, I'm in a dungeon. How am I meeting someone down here? Right. But if you can personify those conflicts and dilemmas into 1 or 2 people for them to interact with, it crystallizes the whole idea. And then people can buy in and maybe get on one side or on the other, and you have a lot more to do.
Yeah. So I often, I've been running some published Pathfinder stuff for my group, my fantasy group, and there's dungeons in there. So I find, like what you just said, combat, they can get really boring, even for the person that loves the combat. So I read this stuff, and I'm figuring out what is the ultimate outcome of this dungeon or this section. What do they need to do? Is it just fighting? I mean, that can be cool at sometimes, but maybe they're after a MacGuffin, like an artifact or something. Well, maybe there's an NPC in there that is some magical, crazy person in there, and they have to interact with them and actually talk with them instead of fighting them. Like, flip it on its edge, flip it around, and just think to yourself, what is the ultimate outcome? And does it really matter if they fight them? Maybe there is another way to get around it rather than just combat. Change it. It's your story.
And
So the meme, of course, is there's the Witch King and there's Snorts the Goblin, and the PCs all go to Snorts the Goblin. So you never can predict who they're going to care about. Well, in my Lost Worlds, Pulpish, Well of the Worlds game, I've said it's typical for the characters to have romantic interests. I don't know what your character's romantic interest is. So why don't you create your romantic interest? Because you're going to care about that NPC, and then that character will join the party. And because occasionally some of the players were interested in same-sex relationships and everything, they created what they wanted, and now I have something to occasionally threaten that they're going to care about.
And to pull a play out of the Savage Rules playbook, in the interest of time, is there any resources that these guys can go to help them with their GMing that you would advise them to go check out? And this will be our final question.
There's a lot of really cool books out there, but I have found that the best way to do it is to play and have fun. Right? Follow your bliss. You get in there, you run, and early on, don't worry about technique. Don't worry about what's right or what's wrong. Do what's fun, and your players will tell you, right? Like, and 9 times out of 10, your players are like, that was great. You're brand new. They're like, you ran a game, and I can't do that. You can, actually, but just kind of go for it. And once you're comfortable there, that's when you start reaching out, like, okay, how do I level up? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing?
I will say, I told someone, this right here is a great way to learn, because you play as many games as you like, and you basically either mentally or whatever, I did not like that. I like that. I did not like that. So you see you don't have to copy anybody, but you see, it's like a salad bar. You pick the things that you thought really worked. I like that. Like, he stands up. It was really awesome when he stood up and started talking to us. I felt engaged. I'm going to try that. So you pull, and then if you see, like, the guy, I had a game, did everything like this. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be 4 hours of time. Not doing that. I want to try to I have a hard time, looking people in the eye, but I got to work on it. I want to look at you and talk to you and not have my no, I got to look. So,
yeah. Look at other game masters, watch other game masters, and like Mike said, at a con, you get to see so many different styles. Look at somebody that you admire, play in those games, and look and see what they do that's fun, that's awesome, that's cool, and make that your own.
So I watch a lot of movies. I actually listen to a lot of books on Audible. So audiobooks, and I steal characters from that all the time. All the time, steal stuff. They're not going to know. If you listen to a Western game and or listen to a Western book and they're describing this character and he's, they're maybe from a movie or something, and you like what they're doing, like their mannerisms, their accent, whatever it is, throw it in your fantasy game. They're not going to know any difference. I mean, it's what you're presenting to them. So, steal. I mean, that's art. I mean, art is built upon other pieces of art. It just doesn't come out from anywhere. And game mastering to me, is a form of art. So, yeah.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for coming. Thank you all for
Thank you
coming
guys
as
for
well.
coming. Yeah.
And I think I think I speak for everyone at the table. If you see us in the hallway and you want to just grab us and ask us a question,
Please.
or
And,
anything like
and
that.
if you buy us dinner, we'll answer all the questions.
Yeah. And if you buy any of our books, we'll definitely answer your questions.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jay.
Thanks so much.